Welcome here to a very special edition of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside the Great Lakes Honda City studios. Great Lakes Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Open Monday through Saturday for sales and service. Find your new and used vehicles at Great Lakes Honda City. You can get a sneak peek by going to greatlakeshondacity.com. And if you see me out in an event, you can get a sneak peek at the Honda 2025 CRV, which I love very much. So with that being said, I have Adam Lemerise here on the show. Adam, did I say it right?
You did. You did,
Okay. I
Dan.
want to make sure I
You
said it
sure
right
did.
here for you, Adam. So
You
Adam
sure did.
Lemerise. So you wouldn't believe what people can do to Tortora. So, so Adam Lemerise
I get it.
and
Trust
we
me, I
have
get it, Dan. I get it
Christopher
completely.
Heidel, both coming to us from HerbFM Sports Radio. And of course, they have branched out to internet television as well. So you hear these voices and see these faces throughout the year. They just had me on their broadcast, and now we are returning the favor for this home and home series. So, gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning.
Uh, Good Tuesday morning, Dan. Pleasure to be on with you as always.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate having you guys here. That what I'm really excited about is we get to do this as an ushering in of the ACC kickoff. So we are all here this morning and celebrating the fact that we are going to be covering the ACC for their 3 days. They have split up their 17 schools among 3 days from Tuesday today, July 22nd to the 23rd. And on my mother's birthday, they will finish things off on Thursday, July 24th. And I've told the ACC, I've asked very nicely. I said, can you please stop doing this on my mom's birthday? But they keep doing it on my mom's birthday. So now Amy and the entire team there, Jim Phillips, everybody's super nice and very sweet to my mom. I was like, do whatever you can to butter my mom up because I'll be down in Charlotte covering this event. So first and foremost, and I'll start with you, Chris, and Adam, I want to hear your thoughts as well. Just what it means to you to be at ACC Kickoff. We've done this for so many years in complete coverage of this conference. So, Chris, I'll start with you. Just why the ACC for you?
Well, because I'm a kid who grew up here in Maryland, and I know the state of Maryland, we had Maryland football. It was in the ACC when I was a kid, when I moved down from New York, from Oceanside, New York to here. And then I just started loving Florida State football since the days I saw them when they took on Penn State and Joe Paterno in the Blockbuster Bowl, and the quarterback was Casey Weldon. And I was like, oh, that guy looked like Joe Montana, So I was downstairs in my basement in my parents' house watching it on an old TV that you used to crank it. It was like one of those, you had to turn the channel to the, I guess you had to turn it to the U, and then you had to turn the little knob or something like that. It was pretty cool looking. And then I was just downstairs watching the rabbit ears, watching the football game, and my mother said right after that, your whole room just changed from from white to like try to be like Florida State's colors, the gold and the red, and my dad made this little banner off the computer that said, welcome to Knoll Country.
Oh,
it
nice.
was it was pretty nice. I think I still have it in my parents' house, or they took it down when they painted the house over, but yeah, and I just started loving ACC football. And then when Maryland left, I decided to stick with the ACC because Florida State's still in the conference, and I love Florida State. And my older brother is Miami. He's been a Miami fan since the days of the Cotton Bowl when they had 800 penalties against Texas back in the day. There, Dan, yeah, yeah, that Cotton Bowl, yeah. And I just love watching ACC football, and I'm very honored to do this every year. I was doing research before I was signing up for the media passes. I've been doing this since, gosh, back to 2013.
Same.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, wow, it's been a long time. And I remember the first time I heard your voice was on this phone call that Mike Flynn used to do. The ACC coaches on every Wednesday morning. So I was outside at work, like on the phone, trying to ask a question and in the rain, and I hear this voice go, "Hi, I'm Dan Tortora at WakeUpCall DT." And I'm like, "Oh, who's this Dan guy?" Like he keeps asking the first question, and I keep hitting. Like you remember Dan? It used to be like star one all
Yeah.
the time. Yeah, so my
Oh,
finger
yeah.
became perfect with the star one. I told my brother, just keep hitting star one, star one. You're good, yeah, good to go. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it's you had to be quick on the trigger back then and
yeah,
doing
yeah.
these ACC and AAC phone calls, and I definitely miss those. Got to know the coaches very well through that. Adam, for you, why the ACC? Why cover this conference? And obviously be on site for the kickoff.
Well, this will be my third year there at the ACC Kickoff with Chris, and I have always loved Florida State going back to the days of Bobby Bowden and obviously their longtime baseball coach Mike Martin Sr. You look at, when Florida State initially joined the ACC, it was like they came in with the vengeance. I mean, you look at all the stars they've had throughout their illustrious career, like Peter Warwick and Charlie Ward and Peter Tom Willis, and you had Derek Brooks, you had Deion Sanders. I mean, you've had so many stars, and as a kid growing up in New Hampshire, I always loved watching the ACC on my local ABC affiliate. So, and now covering the ACC with Chris, I never would have thought I would get a chance to go to ACC Kickoff and talk to all the coaches and the players and all the people that I know from the ACC Network and ESPN. It's like when I had a lot of my friends tell me when I lived in New Hampshire, Adam, you ought to work at ESPN with all the sports knowledge that you have. Well, thanks to Chris, I sort of do work. I mean, I can bring out all my sports knowledge and all the people I've talked with, thanks to Chris on his show, for doing this now for 4 years. I mean, it's amazing, incredible, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, you both talked about being connected to Florida State and the care that you have for the Florida State Seminoles as they step into this season. Their head coach being Mike Norvell, and I covered him for his 4 years when he was over at Memphis inside of the American, and all the work that he did there, the guys that he got to the NFL, the way he recruited, and obviously he got them an AAC championship, their first one that they had. And I was there at the Liberty Bowl to celebrate that, was there at the press conference. And then right after the press conference, he went to Florida State. I was also at the press conference when UCF was at home and they won over Memphis in the AAC championship game before that. And I was there in the room with Scott Frost, who celebrated and then left and went to Nebraska. So it's pretty crazy and real how quickly collegiate athletics changes in the business side of things. So you both love Florida State. Adam, I'll start with you. Thoughts on Mike Norvell? He's been there for a few seasons. The COVID season, they played less games than some other schools. So I kind of say he's been there for like 3.5 years, something like that. But your take on Mike Norvell and what your thoughts are and what he's done with Florida State and maybe what you think they're going to look like this year.
Well, I have a lot of respect for Coach Norvell, what he's done down in Tallahassee after coming over from Memphis. And last year is the year that Florida State fans want to completely forget. One of the worst seasons in Florida State history. Chris and I, we did a wrap-up show after every single Knoll game, and it was like a therapy session. It was hard. We knew probably what was going to happen, and we all remember after Coach Norvell's press conference after the game versus Florida last year, he said, "It was all my fault. That'll never, ever happen again as long as he's coached in Tallahassee." And this year, he brought in Gus Malzahn, and he was the coach at UCF, and at Auburn, he was the OC. So he has experience about, being an offensive coordinator, and he brought in a couple really solid coordinators on defense from Nebraska. And you look at some of the transfers that Coach Norvell brought in. Obviously, one of the big names is Tommy Castellanos, transfer quarterback from Boston College. Last year, he did beat Florida State in Tallahassee, and he came close to knocking out the Seminoles in Chestnut Hill. And he has connections with Gus Malzahn when they were at UCF. So I think this is going to be a good year for Florida State. You look at their schedule, Alabama ain't going to be easy to play week one, but if they can start off on the right foot, I think Florida State can win 8 games and possibly get to a bowl game this year.
Yeah, and you mentioned Tommy Castellanos, who started off his career at UCF and then moved on to Boston College. He is going to join the, I guess, somewhat, I don't want to call it normal, but join the trend of the NIL world and transfer portal world that he was at ACC Kickoff last year representing Boston College, and now he'll be there representing Florida State. He doesn't have to change much of his colors, though. It's like a darker red, and now it's lighter for Florida State, and then the gold kind of stays the same. So I might have to take Tommy aside and say, did you just like keep the same clothes? Did you keep the same tie? I mean, it's not like he's going from Duke to Miami. So, but I mean, this is something that we saw last year, and we're seeing it again. When they mentioned Tommy Castellanos, we're going to be looking up there. And instead of seeing BC next to him, it'll say Florida State. Chris, your take on Florida State, you've covered them for a long time, been a fan for a while. What do you think about Mike Norvell's job up to this point and what this season looks like?
Well, I feel like last year was after that Orange Bowl debacle, with the not getting into the college football playoff, and then everybody leaving, and then you got to take on Georgia. And like Georgia's been like, there was a juggernaut, and Georgia, ran us out of my South Florida. And I think that really affected Mike, because I think Mike wanted to have that perfect season, and he didn't have it. And I think it took a lot on him. And I think I heard stories from people I talked to down there that he basically became John Gruden and sat in the office every day, trying to figure out what to do to get better. And I think it took a toll on him, and I think it took a toll on some people. And we saw it, Adam, last year. He wanted to get out of town quickly in Charlotte. He didn't want to be there. He was like, why am I here? Because the year before that, Adam, Dan, we saw him, in the city of Charlotte walking around with Jordan Travis and Jared Verson, and they were all going to Ruka's Steakhouse for dinner. And we were at the bus stop, and we were like, hey, hey, what's going on? And we were all sitting there talking for like 15, 20 minutes. And I saw the coach next morning, Coach Mike. I said, who paid for dinner? And he goes, is that an NCAA violation? He goes, no comment right now. No comment. Yeah, no comment. But at the time now, they could pay it now. But I feel like this year, we're going to see hopefully next Wednesday, or this week, that basically, we'll see what kind of person he looks like. Is he going to be more happy-go-lucky type Mike that Dan, a guy who really likes to be there, or a person who is more strict, business-like, and wants to go home and get ready for practice.
Yeah, Mike Norvell quoted as saying, quote, anytime you have a season like last year, it's extremely disappointing. I'm disappointed in it, but you don't get caught up dwelling on the things that happen. You look at the things that we've done coming off of last year, some of the new additions, whether it's coaching, staff players, the guys that are young that have grown and really established themselves in new roles, and then what it is to be a Florida State Seminole, end quote. So, I mean, obviously, he is moving forward here. Gus Malzahn coming in, and this is huge. I mean, obviously, for UCF, he was the head coach and left, obviously, after being in the SEC with Auburn, taking some time, going to UCF, and trying to build on that program that had success under Scott Frost, had success from there after Scott Frost under Josh Heupel. And Gus Malzahn didn't really have the same amount of success. They did move from the American to the Big 12, and now Gus Malzahn deciding to leave being a head coach to be a coordinator, which you typically don't see, but he is going to join the staff of Mike Norvell. So you got two guys that were coaching in the state of Florida at the same time, and now they're going to be on the same staff here, and it could be helpful, and obviously helpful too with Gus Malzahn, his name, hopefully his connections, the fact that he was in Orlando at UCF, which is the center of arguably the best state to recruit from when it comes to college football. So what do you think, and I'll start with you, Chris, about Gus Malzahn and Mike Norvell on the same staff together here. Two guys that were head coaches last year, and now Mike Norvell leading the charge with a guy who knows all too well how to win in the SEC and how to do some good things in general as a coach.
Yeah, I think those two guys. I think Mike was under Gus Malzahn at Tulsa, and those two worked together for 1 year. And I guess they were the high power offense in the college football. So let's see how that's going to work this year. Maybe they can bring back some of that magic from Tulsa and make Florida State more like a fun and gun type offense and run up the scoreboards, but just putting more points on the board than they did the last couple of years. And be that Florida State program that we know, Adam, that could take over the game after going up 21-0 and knowing that this is they could just fly right through the game and get ready for next week's game. But I want to see how they're going to work together, and even the guys he brought from Nebraska, and yes, they're coming from the Big Ten, Nebraska, they're trying to get they were trying to get Nebraska back being what Nebraska was. And we'll see how they could, help Mike and, with a different point of view in the locker room, different sound, because I was listening on around here on the week before, before I came down here this morning. Here in Baltimore, we have the Ravens have the same coach for the last 15 years, and maybe having a new coach, new people might change the tune, might change the narrative, and might help change the culture a little bit if you don't if you just change things up, and maybe it might be something pretty good this year.
Yeah, Adam, for you, I mean, we look at a team in Florida State that went from 13-1 a couple of years ago to 2-10, 1-7 in the ACC last season, snubbed, in my opinion, from making the college football playoff. The only school inside of the autonomy group of the Pac-12, well, they still consider the Pac in there, but the Pac-12, the Big 12, the Big 10, the ACC, and the SEC, the only school ever to go undefeated within those conferences and the era of the college football playoff to not make the college football playoff, punished. Keep in mind, Alabama's had guys go down. They weren't punished for it. Carson Beck and everything with Georgia, they're not punished for it, but Florida State was punished when Jordan Travis went down in what could have been. And then the team goes 2-10 last season. And as Chris brought up, we're seeing a connection here once again between Gus Malzahn and Mike Norvell. Mike Norvell being a grad assistant at Tulsa under Gus Malzahn 2007 and 2008. Now Malzahn's going to be Florida State's primary play caller, which was previously held by Mike Norvell, who is the head coach and working on calling those offensive plays. What are your thoughts? 13-1, 2-10, Malzahn and Norvell back together again.
Well, when I heard the news about Gus Malzahn coming in as our new offense coordinator, I was like, okay, I know he did a good job when he was at Auburn in the SEC. And hopefully he'll bring some of that magic he had, at Auburn, Florida State, because Florida State, they want to get back to where Florida State fans know they can be, in the top 25 every week in the AP poll. They want to, be the face of the ACC again, like they were in the past. Yes, they got to go through Clemson. Clemson's won 8 of the last 10 ACC championships, but Florida State needs to get back to where fans know where they can get, and hopefully now with Gus Malzahn, they can get there.
Yeah, and that's the hope as they step forward here. Florida State bringing back Mike Norvell and Gus Malzahn joining the staff. Outside of that, we know that there are some new coaches to the ACC. Of the 17 schools, to keep in mind that there are 18 full member schools, but Notre Dame is independent in football, a part of the ACC and all other sports. So of the 3 schools that have new coaches this season, Frank Reich, who has a lot of NFL experience, is now with the Stanford Cardinal as their head coach after they let go of Troy Taylor, who had been coaching for a long time. Loved my time speaking with Troy Taylor. Speaking of a coach coaching for a long time, Wake Forest Demon Deacon head coach Dave Clawson. I don't know what when I started, basically almost the entire time that I've been around the ACC, he has been the coach. I know a few years before when I started covering the ACC, he wasn't the head coach yet, but used to Dave Clawson, respect the heck out of him, and always appreciate his time. Jake Dickert is going to be the new head coach for Wake Forest going into this season. And the only other coach that we have that is new inside of the ACC's 17 member football schools is just some guy. I don't know. His name's been thrown around town, Bill Belichick, North Carolina. So, Adam, I'm going to start with you. Of the three coaches coming in, I want you to give me something positive for North Carolina with Bill Belichick, Wake Forest with Jake Dickert, and Stanford with Frank Reich.
Well, I'll start with North Carolina since I do live here in the Tar Heel State, and North Carolina is going to have a huge target on their back. They're going to be in the national spotlight every single week. They open up their year in prime time on Labor Day night against TCU on ESPN. So all eyes are going to be on Kenan Stadium in Chapel Hill that Monday night. Regarding Jake Dickert, he was the head coach at Washington State before he made the move over to Winston-Salem to be the head coach of the Demon Deacons. Washington State is a well-known school in the Pac-12, so I have a lot of respect, to see how he does coming from the Pacific Northwest over now, here to North Carolina and Winston-Salem. And of course, Frank Reich, he's a legend. He played collegiately at the University of Maryland. He was a star NFL quarterback with the Buffalo Bills. He has ties to Charlotte as he was a quarterback with the Carolina Panthers. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Coach Frank Reich does on the farm since, Andrew Luck is now out there as well. And we know how good Andrew Luck was when he was quarterback at Stanford. So I hopefully with Andrew Luck there at Stanford, Coach Frank Reich will have a really great year in year one in Palo Alto.
Yeah, definitely hoping the best for each of these coaches as they step in here. And Jake Dickert alluded Syracuse when he left, and a bunch of players left as well before the bowl game. And so Syracuse did not face Jake Dickert. They will not face them in the conference this season either. When there were divisions, they faced Wake Forest every single year. Dave Clawson typically had the number of Dino Babers, but Fran Brown will not be going up against Jake Dickert this season and did not go up against him in the bowl game. Chris, your thoughts on something positive for North Carolina, for Wake Forest, and for Stanford?
I think something positive about North Carolina is they finally got a coach that is actually, I know they went from Butch Davis and brought back Mac Brown last couple of years, but it's great to have somebody who has NFL experience, who is actually a well-known lacrosse guy, here in the state of Maryland, who knows lacrosse, and his father worked down in Annapolis and, with Navy and, all that stuff. So he knows, this area real well. And, and plus he worked with the Baltimore Colts back in the day when, the Colts were here in Baltimore. I don't say it around this neck of the woods because nobody likes the word Colts anymore in this town. So anyway, but I think positive, Bill Belichick is going to bring all the, he's going to show these kids what an NFL coach is, and maybe that could help them get themselves to the NFL. And he knows all about the NFL because he was there for a very long time. He was Bill Parcells' defensive coordinator. He was one day with the Jets and then went to the Patriots for the whole rest of his career. And, and he won, titles and conference championships and all that stuff. So he knows how to win. And that's what I think North Carolina is looking for, that, because I don't think they haven't won a ACC title since, I think, some guy named Lawrence Taylor was playing, back in the 80s. That's been a long time. So I guess they won an ACC title. For Wake Forest, the head coach there, coming from Washington State, I guess he had Cam Ward for 1 year. So he probably knows, what Cam Ward went through in the ACC. And Adam, we had the lady from Washington State on, one of the reporters, and I guess he bent, the wrong ear in Washington State. I guess he pulled a what was that, Nick Saban saying, I'm not going to, going to Alabama, and all of a sudden he shows up at Alabama. So I guess I just want to see how he does in the ACC, because the Pac-12 is a different type of breed, and maybe his offense is probably something going to be different. That Wake Forest is looking for something different in their offense. Maybe a more running game type passing. Because I saw him last year against Ole Miss, and Ole Miss ran them out of the building down there in Wake Forest, and I guess they need to work on their defense. And for Stanford, it's going to be cool to sit down, in face to face with Frank Wright, who, here in Maryland, he's well known for that awesome comeback against the Canes back in '84 in the Orange Bowl, when Maryland was down at halftime and came back and won it. And also, if you're a big NFL fan, what he basically sent the Oilers packing to Tennessee after he beat them, came back and beat them in that divisional playoff, that wild card game up in Boston, in Buffalo. So it'd be cool to see him, bring his style of offense that he had with the Eagles and Colts and Panthers, and see. So this is only a 1-year deal at Stanford. But my question is he going to be, if he does really well for 1 year, is he going to do another 1-year contract and say, hey, I'll do it again? Because it's weird. He's only going to be there for 1 year. That's what he wants to do.
Well, I mean, and the question too becomes, I mean, is that potentially Bill Belichick? So, we're looking at the fact that this ACC, this college football conference, has 3 former NFL head coaches: Bill O'Brien at Boston College, you have Bill Belichick at North Carolina, and you have Frank Reich at Stanford. Now, it's only fair. I know that y'all are on Wake Up Call, but it's not fair for me to ask you the questions and not have the questions asked. So, Adam, you can ask me the next topic, be it Syracuse or whatever, as we're here at ACC Kickoff Week. What question do you have for me, sir?
Well, let's talk about Syracuse, because they brought in a transfer quarterback, Steve Angeli, who is a transfer quarterback from Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. And their other quarterback, Ricky Collins, is going to be in Charlotte representing Syracuse at the ACC Kickoff. So my question to you then is this: who do you think will start for Syracuse in week 1 when Syracuse goes down to Atlanta to face Tennessee with all the problems that they had in the offseason in the Athletic Kickoff Classic?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think Ricky Collins is somebody that, Fran has talked about with the guys he had. That's his starter. I mean, people that pay attention to who's behind Ricky Collins Jr., who really didn't play that much at LSU, the guys behind him are young. They're freshman guys. They're guys that are very, very young in it. He hasn't had a lot of experience, but there's some youth behind him and some potential good arms behind him as well. So, coming out of spring, I did like watching the quarterbacks, a bunch of them, not just Ricky. So, as I reported, Ricky had a hand injury that kept him out of the spring game, and I was able to give that exclusive right before our spring game. And so he did not compete in it. We did get to see some other guys. And, obviously Jakari, who's stayed with Syracuse, we got to see him. And I mean, there's some guys that have obviously moved on from Syracuse, guys that were trying to be, the main backup, Carlos Del Rio Wilson, and, some of the guys who were there. So ultimately, it's a question mark, because Ricky Collins is a guy who hasn't had a lot of experience in college football. He's new to Syracuse. Then you look at Steve Angeli, who hasn't had a lot of experience on the field. However, the experience that Steve Angeli had just so happened to be against Penn State in the college football playoff, which helped get them to the national championship game when he came in for Riley Leonard in the semis and went 6 for 7, 44 passing yards, a completion percentage of just shy of 86%. And so he did some good things. He also, was out there just, I mean, he tried to help the team. He kept the team afloat. And in a game against Penn State that was close, 27-24, he was a piece of making sure that the game was won by Notre Dame. So, my words during the spring and out of the spring were, I think Fran is going to get another quarterback. I think he's not done yet. And if he can, he was going to bring in another guy because why not? And then he brought in Steve Angeli. So it's one of two things, gentlemen,
Mhm.
and people watching, listening. It's either smoke and mirrors saying, Ricky, we named you the starter. You're going to go and represent us in the ACC at the kickoff. And then we're going to have a quarterback competition. And he doesn't want anybody talking to Angeli. Or it is genuinely an open competition, or it's genuinely Ricky's job. So it's one of three. It's either Ricky, this is smoke and mirrors. Two, it's an open competition. Three, Ricky, you actually are the starter. And I think that going through the spring, there was a need to have at least another guy there, in my opinion, with no offense to the guys that were there. I felt like he needed to go get another guy in the transfer portal. He did that in Steve Angeli. Angeli knows high octane situation. He knows what it's like to be in front of touchdown Jesus and be over at Notre Dame. So ultimately, I think Angeli brings an element to the table that I believe is going to turn into a quarterback competition. I think if Fran tells you it's Ricky, I'm still going to say it's not 100%. If he tells you it's Angeli, I'm going to still say it's not 100%. And I think if you're around Fran and you know what Fran is about in practice and you get to kind of just know his personality, whoever the starters are, nobody's job is safe. If you are not bringing it in practice and doing what you need to do, you can be replaced. And I don't think Fran would disagree with me on that. I know I'm speaking from the outside looking in, but I've spent some time with him on and off the air. I would say that if you don't come into a Syracuse practice fighting for your job and you just come in saying, that's my job, I can't lose it unless I get hurt, you might lose that job. So
Right.
I think it's more of an open competition between the two of them. I believe that. I'm excited to see what that looks like. And again, is he bringing Ricky as a facade? Is he bringing Ricky because he means it? Or is this really just an open thing and he didn't want to bring two quarterbacks like some schools have done? But I will tell you this, Fran is playing chess, not checkers. And if I were him, I wouldn't bring Angeli either. And not that I think that Ricky, I'm just saying Ricky's got a lot of time. Ricky's got plenty of time in this thing. Angeli's coming in here. He's been around the block for a minute. And I don't think that maybe he wants that fanfare around Angeli right now, which I understand. But if you put my feet to the fire right now and said, what do you want to see in the fall? I want to see an open competition. I want to see Ricky or Steve take it. And I don't think you bring in Steve for him to not have a chance. And I don't think that you brought in Ricky to tell him to sit down behind Steve without even a possibility. So I think open competition. And I think that from what I know about Fran, man's playing chess. I'm just gonna say that. So Chris,
I love it, man. I love it.
What is your conversation or what is your question for me?
Well, my question is Syracuse. Every year with Dino Babers, he had one good year, and then the next year they go 3-8 or 3-9 and something, and then took them a couple years to get back to 9-3 or 10-3, whatever. What can Fran do to keep that consistency going to another great year like last year? And this time maybe we might see him in Charlotte in December, representing, Syracuse for the first time in a conference championship game. They get, and my other question is Dabo and Fran is going to be there, this week. Who's going to go to Ruka's Steakhouse and see who's buying a steak dinner for, somebody owes them a steak dinner because I think Dabo owes them a steak dinner or something going on. Somebody's going to bring that up this week, that who's going to be buying a steak dinner because of what Syracuse knocked off the Canes last year in the Dome, and you were there in the Dome,
Yeah.
on the weekend, and he said, thanks, Dabo. Here you go, buddy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he said, "Hey Dabo, I got you in, baby," and he stuck his tongue out. So
Yes, he did. He did.
I definitely, I feel like in the heat of the moment, there's those things that kind of cross your mind, and you're like, you just kind of feel it. And I feel like I'd probably do the same thing. I'd be like, "Hey, you're welcome." So, I would say, I don't know if Fran and Dabo are gonna have time to have dinner together, but I would say, Dabo, throw the man something. I mean, listen, he took out who was in your way and opened gave a little green light to Clemson. So I would say the committee, I think the College Football Playoff Committee wanted Miami, and they were doing everything in their power to try to get Miami in.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
SMU was above Miami in the conference and below Miami in the rankings, so that doesn't make any sense. But the real is real. So Dabo, he's made a few dollars in these last couple of years. So I'm just gonna say, Dabo, Ruth's Chris, take him to a nice place, man. Do something nice. Actually, Dabo, you talk about God, you talk about faith. I appreciate and respect you. I mean, Fran's got money like that, and Dabo's got money like that. Dabo, bring me to dinner, man. I'm not up there with you guys yet. So I'll get there. I'm gonna get there. But I'm not at those zeros yet. I don't have all those zeros yet. So we're working on it. But as far as Syracuse goes, I mean, how do they get back there? If y'all remember a few years ago, back in 2018, Syracuse would have been in the ACC championship if there was no divisions back then, because they were the second best team to Clemson, and Pitt was not as good as Syracuse, and Pitt got in because they led the Coastal. So, I mean, it's already a possibility in the last decade that Syracuse would have, in their first 10 years in the ACC, gotten to the championship if the template was set up that way in the past. It wasn't. But when we look at the schedule now for Syracuse, and you say, well, how does Syracuse get back? How can they get, to the top of this mountain? Honestly, this schedule is a lot different than last year. When you look at 2024, I'm not going to take anything away from Syracuse. I'm just going to put these teams up against each other. So 2024 for the Syracuse Orange this year, they're facing off against Tennessee on neutral ground in Georgia at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Last year, they were at home against Ohio. Right. Ohio State, Ohio. And so they had Ohio, they had Georgia Tech early on in the ACC. They had Stanford. That was a fourth down play that, was, I mean, like they say, Syracuse, couple plays away from being in a totally different scenario and potentially getting into the ACC championship last year. One of those losses to Stanford. They beat Holy Cross, UNLV. That was a crazy game, and that was overtime. LeQuint Allen Jr. willed them into the end zone, literally. NC State, they got that win. The Pittsburgh game is atypical. Every game they were in except for that one. Then they beat Virginia Tech in overtime. Then they lost to Boston College by 6. And then they had Cal on the road, who they defeated. And then they defeated UConn in a game that's a lot closer than you would anticipate. But some good things have been happening in UConn. And then they beat Miami on the exact 22-year anniversary of the last time Miami was in the Dome, which was Saturday, November 30th, 2002, where Miami took it to Syracuse. This time, Syracuse took it to them. And then, of course, they beat Washington State. So how do they get back there? Well, this is a really tough season, Chris. And, to your question, Tennessee doesn't have Nico Iamaleava because he left and went to California and forgot about California state law. And even though he thought he was going to make more money, you're not going to make more money because there are so many taxes in California. So, I mean, listen, if the Oakland Athletics don't have a true home and a true future and know what the hell is going on, how are you going to know, man? I mean, that franchise doesn't know. So Nico, he thought maybe he was going to get some more money. But this is the thing that should prove to you, children, that the student and student athlete matters. Because if you choose NIL over your education, Nico Iamaleava thought, I'm making good money in Tennessee. I can go over here and make more money if I go to California. The math of it all, the education of it all would tell you, yes, you make more money on paper, but that money gets taxed more. So he's actually making less than $1 million when he was allegedly leaving $2 million. So he cut his money in less than half, which is why you should stay in school, children. So when we look at this upcoming season, you got Tennessee, you got UConn again, which is at home. You got Colgate. You're at Clemson, who you didn't face last year. You're at SMU, who you didn't face last year. You're at Miami, which is the home and home. And then you're at Notre Dame. And you got to play at Miami, take a break, play Notre Dame. Now, the good thing is the breaks that they have come at good times. So they do have the opportunity from November 8th to November 22nd. They got 2 weeks between Miami on the road and Notre Dame on the road, which is huge for Syracuse. They also have time between being on the road at SMU in Dallas, and then being at home against Pittsburgh. So, I mean, this is a different gamut. This is a different bird.
Mm-hmm.
And so to go 10-3 with this schedule, that would be incredible. Then Fran would be asking Syracuse for more money, and he should. And so, I mean, I think Tennessee is a toss-up because they have a new quarterback, and so does Syracuse. I think UConn and Colgate, on paper, those should be wins for Syracuse. Don't count out UConn because they played them so close last year, but those should be wins for Syracuse. But at Clemson, at SMU, at Miami, at Notre Dame, you're trying to win one of those games. And so let's say they go 1-3. Let's say they beat Pitt, who's a thorn in their side all the time. Let's see they win at Georgia Tech, but Georgia Tech is a tough team to play as well. Let's say they lose to North Carolina. I mean, you're looking at a season where you can easily be 6-6, 7-5. And so I don't see them getting back to 10 wins this season based on the level of competition that they're going to be going up against. That's no knock on Fran. It's no knock on the student athletes. It's just the reality to me that last year's schedule, really good for a first-time head coach coming in. This schedule, like if Fran came in last year and he could have easily went 4-8, like Dino, like Scott Schaefer. I mean, this is a tough schedule for anybody to be in. I know he doesn't shy away from competition. I know that he wants to win every single game or why play it. I know his eyes for a national championship, not an ACC title, but beyond that. So I just think this is going to be a very, very challenging schedule. And to have SMU, Miami, Notre Dame, and Clemson on the road in the same season, like that's a lot. That's a lot to deal with. So I don't see 10-3 this year. But if they can split those games, if they can go 2-2 in those games, then good signs for Syracuse in the future.
Yeah,
Agreed.
I agree.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So I'm going to throw it back to you here, Chris.
Yeah.
Biggest positive surprise this season for the ACC and biggest negative surprise for this season. Who do you think will maybe stun some people in a good way, and who do you think may be an underperformer this year as a team?
That's a good question. Probably, I can't say Florida State because we all know what's going on with that. I want to say NC State because I feel like Dave Durant is on some way. He needs to get over that hump. Like he had everything going last year, and then something happened, and then he went to the Military Bowl and had to fight somebody down in the Military Bowl for some apparent reason. I don't know what the heck going on down there in Annapolis after that game.
Yeah,
I think that would be a surprise for the ACC to see NC State maybe making a run to the ACC championship game because they haven't been there at all since I've been covering this team. In the ACC title game, it's been Clemson, North Carolina, Pitt was thrown in there for 1 year. Miami was there against Clemson and got steamrolled. Against Clemson. Florida State was there. It's probably be cool to see new teams in the ACC championship game. Maybe NC State versus maybe Georgia Tech, let Georgia Tech take on NC State for, I know that's not going to be ratings that, ABC would love to have, because it'd be like, oh God, we got NC State and Georgia Tech. But, I think that'd be great to see those two schools because I think Georgia Tech, had a chance to go to the ACC championship game if they swept the whole state of Florida. They beat Florida State and Miami. So they own the state of Florida for 1 year. So they should get the state flag for the year. Yeah.
Yep.
But I think that's those two teams should be the surprise. And the team I'm thinking is going to be completely like a dumpster fire. I want to say Miami because what is Miami going to have? They don't have anybody anymore. They just brought in Carson Beck, who is basically just there because his girlfriend is going down there to school, so he's just there to play football. He has a 1-year rental again. And Miami's basically they don't have the weapons they had last year. The only thing they might have is that running back from North Dakota State that Coach Shimrick here at Houston saw. Maybe I could talk to him in a couple weeks to see what he saw. Playing against them last year and up there in the fog, Fargo, North Dakota. So I feel like Miami might be a dumpster fire, and also maybe Pitt might be a dumpster fire because Pitt, is basically. I feel like Pat Narduzzi needs to do something to change that thing. Cause last year they just completely they had a chance. They had Clemson on the ropes
Yeah.
to knock them out, and somehow let them back in the ball game. And then, they had a good, decent quarterback. But some of them just left, with this transfer portal stuff. So we'll see how Pat's going to change the narrative up there and make Pitt, another exciting Saturday afternoon instead of waiting for the Steelers to play on Sunday. And that's a beautiful stadium, Heinz Field. It's Heinz Field, not whatever they call it. I call it Heinz Field.
Yeah, it'll always be Heinz Field, whatever it is now.
Yeah. What is it? Something field, Cora. I can't even say it. It's like okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the Pitt Panthers now play on the official field is Acrisure Stadium. So
Sure, yes.
yeah,
That's right.
Acrisure. I wanted to say IKEA, but
IKEA, get an IKEA field.
yeah.
That's good. Oh, no.
That's my down in
Oh,
Miami.
that's good, man.
IKEA,
Oh, that's good.
Hard Rock Stadium down the IKEA field because
But here's the thing though. If IKEA became the partner of a stadium, would they build it for them?
Oh, that's good. Oh, that's a good. Oh, that's a good one,
Here's my
Dan.
question here: if they build it, do they have to pay the lovely tax or the tariff? Because they have to build the field because it's a Swedish.
Well, the other thing about building it too is some people say that IKEA stuff is good.
Yeah.
Some people say it falls apart. So
That's true, Dan. That's true.
But is it IKEA or is it the person putting it together? I don't know. I mean, IKEA, listen, I have no qualms with you. If you want to partner with this show, it is totally fine. All I want to know is if you are the stadium partner, do you build it? Because if you don't, isn't that kind of what you do? So, I mean, I'm just saying. So it's like Coca-Cola having a stadium with Pepsi.
Here's my question. If they build it, is it going to be in different languages? Because I know in IKEA they have the English language, the directions, and they have the Swedish, and they have the, the Spanish. Because if you open up a package, it's like hit 5A goes here, 4A goes there, and you're looking at it going, does this look right?
It's very confusing to put stuff together. I will say. I'll definitely say that. I mean, it's not an easy thing, especially when a lot of screws look exactly the same.
Hey, the breakfast is good. Don't worry about it. My parents go down there for a doctor's appointment where they down in Baltimore, and they stop by and they go, the breakfast is good. The cinnamon buns are great. I'm like, okay, thanks for letting me know that. I'll just stop by.
Well, guys, it's called. It's called. If IKEA ever were to have a stadium, after them. The old saying, if they build it, people will come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's a good one. I never
They're
thought
supposed
about
to be
that.
coming to Destiny USA, so they're literally going to build it. We'll see if people come. So the reality, who knew that this was going to be a show all about IKEA? But here's the thing. So when we look at the schedule again for 2025, we have the team that we think will be a pleasant surprise, right? A positive surprise. And then the one that may be underwhelming. Chris gave his thoughts. I will give mine, but not before Adam. Adam, who is the team that will surprise us in a good way? Who is the team that you think will surprise us in not having maybe the season some think they will?
First of all, I'm going to say Georgia Tech. You look what they return running on quarterback Haynes King. A lot of respect for what he did last year. You look at their running back and also their great wide receiver in Blake Rutherford, and they open up their year in Boulder, Colorado against Deion Sanders and the University of Colorado. Chris and I had the legendary voice of Colorado, Mark Johnson, on our show recently, and he was, this is year 3 out there in Boulder with Deion Sanders. He doesn't have Shedeur Sanders. He doesn't have Travis Hunter. So we'll see what happens. I think Georgia Tech can make a run. Mm-hmm. Find a way to maybe sneak to Charlotte and get the job done. And a team I think is going to be disappointing. I think Duke under Coach Manny Diaz. I've looked at their schedule. I think their schedule is very tough out there in Durham. But we'll see what happens. So I mean, that's why they play the game.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm going to pick something different than you both, just to be fair to the conversation here. I think a team that may be a light that is a pleasant surprise this season. I have two. And I think that one of them will be North Carolina because Bill Belichick don't put up with none of that. So, I think with Bill Belichick coming into town, listen, he took a 6th round compensatory pick in Tom Brady, who was a backup quarterback out of Michigan. And he had the right system. He had the right players. Who knew Wes Welker? Who knew Danny Amendola? Who knew James White? Who knew Tom Brady? So, the reality of it all is Bill Belichick, he knows how to scheme. He knows how to put a team together. He knows how to use a team to their strengths. And I don't think that he would just come to any old school just to come to any old school. Now, maybe he's looking to retire in Charlotte. I don't know. But the reality of it all is if he comes there and he comes back into coaching, he knows everything that comes with that. Now, does he care what people think? Probably not. And I respect that about him. So I think North Carolina could be a pleasant surprise. When we look at North Carolina's schedule, they have TCU in that first game. Then they're playing Charlotte. Then they're playing Richmond, the Spiders. Then they're playing UCF, who's been underwhelming and don't have their head coach anymore, and Gus Malzahn. They have Clemson in between 2 open dates. This is crazy thing about North Carolina this year. They have TCU, Charlotte, Richmond, UCF, bye week, Clemson, bye week. So either time to go into it and prepare for Dabo Swinney and then come out of it successful, or time for Bill Belichick to swear at you before and after the game. So Cal, and they really worked that out for Bill Belichick. I feel like he's like, one of the ways that I'm going to actually take this job is if you're going to make us play Clemson, you give us a week before and a week after. And then they play Cal, and then they play Virginia, and then they play Syracuse in Syracuse, and then which is going to be Syracuse's best game in the Dome this year on paper. Then they play Stanford, Wake Forest, Duke, and NC State. So they finish off their regular season playing all in-state rivals, Wake Forest, Duke, and NC State, which I think is huge. I think that North Carolina could come out of those first 4 games arguably 3-1. If they lose to Clemson and are 3-2, I could see them winning the majority of their games after that. So I do think that Bill Belichick, he could put together a 7 to 9 win team in his first season in North Carolina and be a very pleasant surprise. Yeah. My other pleasant surprise, and people say, well, how is it a surprise because they did well last year? Well, people didn't respect them last year, and they're bringing back their quarterback. And people say, how could Kevin Jennings have such a bad game when he helped to lead SMU all the way to the college football playoff? Right. Well, I was at that game, and I was in a press box surrounded by glass. It was so loud in the press box, in my ears, when I was in an enclosed area, that I can't imagine what he did not hear on that field. So I'm not going to say that Kevin Jennings can't rise to the moment, but holy Penn State, can those fans show up? 106,000 people. Absolutely insane. And I tell people this. I said this when I left. I said, if the South is God, family, and football, and the South is football country, then Penn State must have a Southern zip code. The place was absolutely nuts. It was crazy. It was crazy. And I have so much more respect for Penn State having physically been there on their grounds. I have more respect for James Franklin now. And, I definitely do not think that Kevin Jennings should be judged by one game. So I'm excited to see SMU, and I'm going to say that they could be a pleasant surprise because I still think people are like, what conference are they in? Are they still in the American? I feel like people are still dogging them, still disrespecting them, and they got a schedule where I'm looking at these first few games and I'm going, okay, We'll see what we can have coming out of that. But then I look at this like stretch in the middle, and they're going to be challenged this year. They're definitely going to run the gamut. And if they win the amount of games they won last year, this year, they get close, they definitely have to be in the nation's top 5, top 7, top 10. And so I think SMU is going to be a pleasant surprise because Rhett Lashley has done a hell of a job. He is underrated, and I think he likes that.
Yep.
Kevin Jennings is underrated. I think he likes that. SMU is underrated as a school. I think they like that. So all I'm saying is watch out for SMU. The other school, the school that I would say may be underwhelming this year is, and it's interesting to look at some of these schedules, but I want to pick somebody different than you both picked. So I think the school that may be somewhat underwhelming, I think Georgia Tech's going to have a good year. I'm hoping the best for Florida State. I think the team that might struggle here, I think Manny Diaz and Duke.
Okay.
I think, seeing they're going to play Illinois. We'll see what that looks like in week 2. Tulane is no slouch with John Summerall. They had a heck of a year last year in the AAC. They got to play NC State after that. They got to play Syracuse. They got to play Cal. They have to play Georgia Tech this year. They have to play Clemson this year. And the second to last game of the season is Bill Belichick. So I think Duke may have one of those rougher, maybe equator line types of years. So that's a team that I think maybe some people are getting higher on because of Manny Diaz. And obviously with Bill Belichick coming to North Carolina, there's going to be more expected of Manny Diaz because of the Duke North Carolina rivalry and literally everything. Yeah. They probably have a hot dog eating contest against each other. So I think Manny Diaz and Duke, maybe they don't have as great of a season. The other one that I kind of circle is, I would say, I think Wake Forest has a favorable schedule in certain places, but I think Wake with Jake Dickert might have an underwhelming season, but I don't think people expect a lot out of them. So that's what's hard. It's like, I think there's a little more expectation for Duke, but I think, Miami, will they repeat and do what they did last year? They have to play Notre Dame in their first game. They have to play the Bulls, who are no slouch of South Florida, in their third game. They got to play the Gators right after that. They have to play the Bulls, the Gators, open week, then Florida State. Then they go back into a bye week. Then they play Louisville, Stanford, SMU, Syracuse, NC State, Virginia Tech, Pitt. So I think that either Manny Diaz's old team or Manny Diaz's new team might struggle. And Manny, if you're listening, this has nothing to do with you. I just think Duke, there's a lot of expectation with Duke with Bill Belichick coming into town down the road. And I think Miami has so much expectation with Mario Cristobal. I think Miami may not have as good of a season as people anticipate. But I do agree with you guys. I think Georgia Tech is going to be a team that maybe some people overlook that's going to have a good season. I think Florida State has the opportunity to do it. I think SMU has the opportunity to do it. Dare I say Clemson, since people think that when that team wins 9 or 10 games, it's a bad year. But I think there's some come up teams here right now. I'm interested to see what Louisville does this year, if they can keep it going in a positive direction. But I definitely I got a little circle here on SMU, and I got a little circle on North Carolina because Bill Belichick doesn't come to play games. He comes to win games.
Yeah, and I'll say this about Louisville. They bring in a quarterback who has a lot of, they bring in a quarterback in Miller Moss. He was at SoCal under Lincoln Riley, and he comes to a program where his coach was a quarterback at Louisville in Jeff Brown. So I want to see how Miller Moss does coming over from the Big Ten. It's still weird to say USC is in the Big Ten, yeah. but I want to see how he does, against ACC competition, and now the starting quarterback at Louisville. I think Miller Moss, I'm looking forward to talking with him in Charlotte, seeing how the transition has gone, through spring practice and getting ready for fall camp, and I think I think Louisville could struggle, but they could pull a few rabbits out of the hat.
Okay, I like it. Well, we're going to have one final thing. It's going to be a round robin here. And so we're going to ask a question around and ask a question back. So we will all get to ask each other one final question here in the kickoff of the ACC 2025-26 season on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside the Great Lakes Honda City Studios. Chris, I will ask you, and then you will ask Adam. Adam will ask me, and then we'll go back. So, Chris, my question to you for this ACC kickoff. What coach, if you could get 20 uninterrupted minutes, which coach of the 17 would you pick to talk to for this season, and why?
Maybe Frank Wright, maybe because of the Maryland connection, and I live in Maryland, so maybe I want to sit down and talk to him about the glory days of Maryland. Because I feel like Maryland football is still trying to get back to where Homer Esiason and Bobby Ross and all those people were, and nothing against Mike Locksley. He's doing a fantastic job, but when you're trying to recruit and play in the Big Ten, I think it's a little harder for Maryland to become Maryland of the ACC. They're trying to get rid of all that, and if you go to Capital One Field at Bird Stadium, it's still all ACC stuff around there. It's fascinating. It's like, you're in the Big Ten for what, almost 10 years, and you still talk about your glory days in the ACC. It's like, let's make a new chapter. And maybe I could talk to Frank about the days of playing down in College Park. What was it like playing down in the DC area at the time. You had the Washington Don't Call Me Redskins, rolling through DC and taking over the NFL with Joe Gibbs, and up in Baltimore they didn't have an NFL team, so the Redskins were the team of this area, pretty much. So that's my question, to answer your question. So,
okay.
All right, now let me ask Adam. Adam, out of all the people that you're going to see and to this week at the ACC kickoff, is there one person that you would like to meet in person for the first time in your life?
Sure. Well, I grew up in New England, so obviously my answer is going to be Bill Belichick. After seeing him win so many Super Bowls with Tom Brady and the legendary teams he had back in the day, I want to know how the transition has gone so far from being an NFL head coach now, with grown adults, now with young adults, young men in Chapel Hill at the University of North Carolina. How's spring practice going? What are your expectations for the year? And just maybe talk about the history of being the head coach of one of the greatest dynasties that we've seen in the NFL. So Dan, I'll ask your last. So out of all the 17 head coaches in the ACC, which one would you like to sit down for 20 uninterrupted minutes and just have a nice, relaxing conversation?
This will surprise some people. So I sat down with Fran, and I would like to believe we will do that again, hopefully soon, by the grace of God, and obviously at the ACC kickoff. So I'm not going to say Fran Brown because we have gotten to sit down. I'd like to spend 20 with Bill Belichick. I would like to really pick his brain and get to know the man. I've always said I don't shy away from talking to anybody. So I'd want to sit down with Bill Belichick, and and I just want to talk. I want to talk with him differently. I would like to think that people can sense my faith in God, can sense my nature. That's what I'm getting at, people, like the humanity, the honesty, the integrity. And I would want the opportunity to just show a different side of him. It's the same reason I want to talk to Mike Tyson. I feel like, everybody wants to paint somebody this way, but like, do you really know Bill Belichick? Like, from a post-game press conference, how much do people really know about this guy? They're like, he's ornery, he's mad, he's this, he's that.
He wears a hoodie.
But people thought that with Jim Boeheim. People thought Jim Boeheim, he's so mean, he's so rude, he's so crass, he's got no sense of humor, he's this and that. I never had a bad conversation with Jim Boeheim. And I did talk to him in his office, just me and him. And coming off a golf course, me and him. And on the practice court, me and him. So, I would definitely want to sit with Bill Belichick and just like get to know the man, ask him questions he's not used to being asked, and just trust in, the way I do things and how I go about
With
things.
Bill Belichick, it's going to be funny to see him this week in a shirt and tie because he looks like he shops at the small store. Like my nephew looks better in a shirt and tie than he does. And it's like I'm thinking about he should just wear a hoodie on Thursday.
I think he should feel comfortable. If he wants to wear a hoodie,
just let him wear a hoodie.
I have no problem with that. I have no problem with that.
I might be coming in a tank top and shorts because it's going to be 172 degrees in Charlotte.
Yeah.
So I'd want to sit down with Bill Belichick and just give people a different conversation with him than what they're used to, and I would trust myself to do that with anybody.
Right.
My question back to you, Adam.
Mm-hmm.
If you took over my show for the day, and it is Wake Up Call with you, what 3 people would you want to interview and why, living or dead?
Well, I think the first person I would like to interview, someone who I have a lot of respect for, since I live in North Carolina. North Carolina is NASCAR country. I would want to start an interview with the legend Dale Earnhardt Sr. I watched him race for so many years on TV. He won 7 NASCAR championships. He was considered one of the greatest drivers in NASCAR history. I want to know what it was like to have a huge target on your back, racing against legends like Richard Petty and Jeff Gordon and David Pearson and so many other great NASCAR drivers history. My second one, probably George Washington.
Okay.
He was the first president of the United States. I want to know what it was like, to be around all those people, signing the Declaration of Independence and what it felt like.
Oh, cool.
And third, probably, I will say, one of the greatest baseball players of all time. I would probably want to sit, if I could, with Babe Ruth.
Okay.
We know about everything that happened with him getting traded from the Red Sox to the Yankees and the curse of the Bambino that eluded Red Sox fans for a long time, and they finally broke their World Series curse after 86 years. I want to know what it felt like, to get traded from one legendary team to another, especially that the team was your rival.
Yeah.
So how did you feel about getting traded to your rival?
I like it. All right, Adam, your last one for Chris.
Go ahead, bud.
All right, Chris. If you could go back, it's called, out of all the legendary ACC, if you could go back in time and interview one coach from other than football, who's no longer around, which coach from which sport and which coach would you like to interview?
Ooh, that's a good question. Maybe Al Davis, because I have that mentality, of commitment to excellence. Just win, baby. And I feel like he basically took a team like an Oakland Raider team that was in the AFL that was not even like an afterthought and turned it into a beautiful franchise. And I know they moved back and forth from Oakland to Los Angeles and now to Vegas and all that stuff, but I feel like Al Davis really changed the way the NFL is because he was a coordinator, he was a head coach, became an owner, and then his whole teams were basically looked like a bunch of savages. With Kenny Stabler and all those all those Raider players that look like they just got off the the longest yard, the movie, when they all got off the bus, because they're in jail. That's what they look like. But to me, that to me is that's a tough team there. And I guess back in the day, and I wasn't even born in the 70s, because I would love to see what they were back in the 70s, because it was Pittsburgh, Oakland. You threw the Baltimore Colts in there a little bit. Miami Dolphins were there too, but it was always Oakland and Pittsburgh, in the 70s, playing each other for chances to go to the Super Bowl or AFC title game. And I think Al Davis will probably, and he was a great businessman too, because he took it to, he markets his team. He was there every day. He made, I know at the end of his life, he was kind of weird and, hiring people, but he hired John Gruden, and John Gruden, gave him an opportunity to win a Super Bowl and, and all that stuff. And, and he kept the Raider Nation, and he kept all the former players back there. And I think that's the way to build a franchise. You bring back all the nostalgia. Yeah, a lot of people don't understand nostalgia, but to me, it's great to see, all the cool players that come back to, like an example like the Mets, when they bring back all the old people from '86, like Timmy Tuffle and Darryl Strawberry and all those people. It's like, it's cool to see the past, but hopefully the past could help them build a great future. And I think hopefully the Raiders could get back to being the Raiders. Maybe they'll set something up in Vegas and be really good.
Yeah, I like it. I like that answer, and I appreciate it, and I respect it. Chris, you got one more? You will ask the last question. What do you got for me?
Oh, okay. All right. Out of all the cool things you do up there in Syracuse, because I know I went up there one time for a game, and I walked around and looking for a VIP parking, and couldn't find VIP because you're the boss up there in Syracuse.
Man, they make me park an hour and a half away. Don't you worry.
No way, Dan. No way. Dan, I don't believe it.
You have no. Listen. When I have it like that, and I bring the helicopter, I'm gonna bring the helicopter down right next to the dome. I'm gonna put it right there next to Fran's car, and they're gonna know what's up. But yeah, no, they
love it. They
make me park so far. But you know what? It's on them though, because it's helping my body. It's getting my steps in. It's helping me stay toned and fresh and ready. And when the sun's out, it's helping me stay tan. So all I'm going to say is, when you make a man work for something, you make a woman work for something, watch out. Because if we do work for it, we're going to look so much better doing it. So all I can say is, I don't know. I guess they helped me with my stair climbing and helped me to climb that mountain in Italy. So
oh, there you go.
So you live in Syracuse. What is one thing that you always, you've been around Syracuse sports, in the sports scene, because you have, the Orange, or the Orange Men, they used to be called, now the Orange. You got minor league baseball and the Syracuse Mets around there. Is there one moment that you always remember Syracuse sports? Because down here in Maryland, people around here knows when the Ravens won the Super Bowl, or the Orioles winning the World Series, or it was me living in Long Island knowing where I was when I was 6 when the Mets won the pennant, the World Series. But is there one thing that you always going to remember about Syracuse sports that you're going to say, I was glad I was there?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't physically in New Orleans when it happened, but I was with my mom and my dad 2003 when Syracuse won the men's Division I national championship, won the NCAA tournament. Only time they've ever done that.
Mm-hmm.
I have a T-shirt that says they did it 3 times. I don't know who made that mistake, but okay. But
Okay.
but they won one time in 2003. Carmelo Anthony, Queth Dwaney, Josh Pace, Hakeem Warwick, Jerry McNamara, Craig Forth, Billy Edelin, all them guys. And so I would say, going back to that time, that was an amazing moment, because I still remember my dad was sitting in the recliner. My mom was behind me, standing next to the couch. I was kneeling down in front of the TV as if I was going in the game. And my dog, Shady, the time, she was sitting to my right, and she was looking at me like, what is he doing? And when they won, I looked at the screen. I was in a state of shock. And I kind of you feel it. And then I put my head down. My mom's like, what? And my mom's like, is it over? She didn't think it was over. And my dad just started laughing. and I would and then I believe my mother swore. And so we just all being in that room together. We were in the same room when Syracuse made it to the 96 Final Four. Cuse in the house. Oh my God. So like that moment to be in the same room and see everything, happen 7 years later and they win it was really, really cool. So, and I picked them to win that year. And of everyone whose bracket I took in high school, it was me and one other guy that chose Syracuse to win. Everybody else picked Kentucky and Duke and Ohio State and whatever. So they made fun of me, called me a homer, all this whatever. Oh, you loving this? And I was getting ragged on for weeks. When they won, everybody's in the cafeteria slapping high fives at CBA at my high school. I said, put your damn hands down. I got receipts. And I opened up my book bag. I had everybody. I said, you pick Kentucky. You pick Florida. Shut the hell up. You pick Duke. You're stupid. So, I picked Syracuse. Nobody wanted to give me a high five. Everyone's like, yeah, yeah, Dan. I said, I got proof that I picked the Syracuse Orange. And God knows that I did. I picked Syracuse.
That's awesome.
And I'm proud of that. So that I would say is my favorite moment. I love New Orleans. I did Katrina relief 3 years later. So I would say that, is also really cool. My love for music and writing music and singing, like New Orleans being the place where Syracuse won, means a lot to me. But yeah, if any of y'all that went to high school with me and graduated in 2003 are watching and listening, you know who you are. Y'all owe me some high fives, and some of y'all need to shut the hell up. So, I mean, that's
they need they need to pay it. What they need to do, Dan, is
they need to make a statue for you. Yeah.
Yeah, they need to make a statue. They need to buy your dinner and be like, congratulations, after all this time, we'll finally acknowledge you picked Syracuse and now we'll shut up about the whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, I remember being in there and everybody's high-fiving, and some of these guys, like, the people that were just ragging, and they're all high-fiving each other, and nobody high-fived me. I said, I know that my hand is not up here by itself when I'm one of the only people that picked this team to win. And I mean, I picked Syracuse then, and I also picked Syracuse to win the ACC as the only member of the ACC media back in 2015, 2016. And that's when they made the Final Four. And there was a newspaper that wrote an article about me that did not put all my quotes in there and that said I was a mystery man that revealed myself, even though I put on my public free website my picks. I wasn't hiding. And when I was right, nobody came up for a follow-up conversation. So they tried to make me look stupid, but then they made the Final Four with North Carolina, who's the team I picked to finish after Syracuse. So the two teams I thought would be at the top of the ACC were at the top of the country of over 300 schools in the Final Four in Houston in 2016. So if y'all are going to be sending, flowers and cards and chocolates, well, then there's a newspaper that needs to write to me as well. And some people that thought maybe I was crazy in the ACC when I picked them, but I had a reason for that. In 2003, I rode with them. And in 2016, I said, I think they're going to be the best team in the ACC. And they weren't the best team in the ACC. They were one of the best teams in the entire country that year. So I'm just saying, I keep receipts. I'm not right about everything, but in the moments that I am right, man, people shut up real quick.
Yeah.
So
well, I can say, you had that article, the guy wrote a mystery man, picked it. I had the same situation here. I went to do the West Virginia and Maryland game, and Randy Edsel was the coach of Maryland. And there was a play that it was I think it was like a pass interference call that he didn't call and didn't challenge. And I said, Coach, why didn't you challenge the pass interference call? Because that was a pass interference on West Virginia. He goes, well, that's not in my paycheck. I can't do that. So the next day I'm at work reading the paper and said, a local reporter asked Randy Edsel about why he didn't challenge the pass interference call, and he said, it's not in my paycheck. I don't have to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute. I said, wait a minute, that's me. It's like, why can't you put my name in there?
Well, yeah, we're giving you publicity, Chris. I mean,
but it was like Dan's situation, like mystery man, picked Syracuse. It was like local reporter, asked a question about, why didn't you challenge the pass interference call? And he said, it's not
the same paper last year. I asked the questions in the ACC tip-off to Syracuse, like all but one, and they wrote, "Someone in the room asked this question." Someone in the
What
room.
the-
I said, "Dude," I said, I know that you know my name. I see you all the time. Like we're in the same area. But you know what? It's cool because as my dad told me a long time ago, why does it matter?
Right.
He said, God knows what you did. At the end of
Yep.
your life, other
Mhm.
people in the media aren't letting you into heaven.
Right.
People in the cafeteria aren't letting you into heaven. So, and we all know Hitler ain't letting you in. So,
No.
but
Ooh.
so the reality of it all is be a good person, be kind, joke around. Okay. We
Yep.
told jokes on the show today, folks, here on Wake Up Call. That's what we do all the time. Learn to be
Yes.
sarcastic, learn to
Yes.
accept humor, stop taking life so seriously. When people say, "What happened to America?" I said, we got soft and we got weird and we got angry about everything. And if
Right.
everything triggers you, then nothing triggers you. You know, it's like, I
Yeah.
can't eat Rice Krispies. They bother my heart. Shut up, man, and get snap, crackle, and pop and move on with your life. So, I mean,
Yeah.
who
Oh,
would hate
yeah.
Rice Krispies? So the
I get
reality
to
of
say
it
I
all,
agree
I
with you,
don't hate
dude.
Rice
I agree with
Krispies.
you.
Oh, I love them.
I agree with you totally. You know, I feel like this country's getting soft because, you know, like the other day, I think I heard something like, um, I guess they took some, oh, it was the movie Blazing Saddles because they took it off because it was very improper. So what?
yeah.
Who
Well,
cares?
there's Rush Hour
Yeah.
now has a warning that movies that were made back in the 90s may have some whatever it said like accents or
Oh my
impersonations
God. Seriously?
that may
Oh,
be
gosh.
unsettling to you, and I'm
Oh,
like,
gosh.
listen, okay, we all know, like, if someone's impersonating an Italian, I'm Italian. If someone's impersonating an Italian, I know they're gonna talk like this and they're gonna put their
Yeah.
hands together
Yeah.
and they're gonna say, "Hey, yo,
Yeah.
Daddy T,
Yeah.
I got a deal for you." I know it, and I'm not
Yeah, I
offended by
know
that.
it. Yeah.
I wouldn't be offended by it, Dan. No.
You know, and the whole and like Hispanic. I mean, I'm Hispanic. I have family in Spain. Do you know how many people hear that I'm Hispanic and they go, "How's Mexico?" And I'm not from Mexico. But you know what? It's
No.
like, I'm not gonna lose sleep over. I had somebody ask me, "What is more authentic, Moe's or Chipotle to my culture?" I said, I'm not even going to talk to you about one of those, but I said, let's talk about Chipotle. And listen, I've been to both, whatever. There's good things about them. I'm not going to knock either one of them. But I said, how can you, they're like, okay, so Chipotle. And I said, you think Chipotle is authentic to Hispanic culture? I said, when's the last time you went into a Chipotle and someone helped you that wasn't named Beth or Steve?
Oh, that's a
Hey,
good one. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
found out the other day of white man tacos, and I don't know. I do this all the time. Just take ground beef, put it in the skillet, get some cheese, get some Mexican style cheese, get some lettuce, and put it in a tortilla shell. And this white man tacos.
That's
And
what
I'm like,
they
what's
call it, white man tacos. My buddy made something called hobo stew back in the past. Like it was macaroni, ketchup, and hot dogs. And
dude?
he used to
Oh,
make it, and he was like, "Do you want some?" I'm like, "Nah, man, they serve that stuff in hell." So, but
oh, well, maybe I would eat that. I mean,
no, you wouldn't, Adam.
never.
Don't eat that. Don't eat.
Oh,
It's almost
okay. All
having
right. I mean,
almost like having your mac and cheese and
Yeah,
putting cucumber in your mac and cheese and just mix it up.
oof, Chris.
yeah.
Oh,
There's some
thank you.
stuff that just needs to be left alone. But the ACC
Oof.
kickoff is happening this week. We will all be there and excited to be in Charlotte once again. 17 schools. It was 2 days. Last year it was four. Now it is three.
Hmm.
And I'm very excited about everything that we're going to get to do here. I'm excited to talk with every school. And I appreciate Adam and Chris for having me on their show on HerbFM Sports Radio. And of course, always appreciate having you guys on here. Looking forward to having some good quality time and some more laughs because
Oh
why?
yeah. We do this. We should do this every week. You know, just do like a Chris and Adam and Dan. Just talk about
Oh,
whatever.
I'm game. It's like if you can't have fun in your life, then something's wrong with you.
I
I
feel
mean, you got to
great
have a
actually
little.
listening to you
I mean,
guys
you got to
all.
have a
Yeah.
little. You got to have a little laughter in your life. Folks, you only live once, so enjoy your life.
Right.
I mean, I mean, you know, go. I mean, don't let it, don't let a dream get go
Right.
you go chase your dreams.
Exactly.
I've chased my dreams and I'm still chasing. So
Yeah.
it's like,
Same thing too.
will
I'm
I ever
still
get,
chasing.
to finish my dreams? No, you never know. But I mean, go chase them. I mean, you never know what you'll get into.
Yeah. Hey, and I look at it the same thing, Adam. Like me, and and Dan knows that I love Neil Diamond, and Neil
Yeah.
Diamond is one of those people that you know him, you know the songs, but he flies underneath the radar.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I want to be just like him. Like, yes, you know me. I have a show. I talked to whoever we had on our show. We had Al Oliver on a couple weeks ago. The guy who used to play for the Expos and played with Cobra in Pittsburgh. But I don't want to be that guy out there everybody knows. I just want to fly underneath the radar and go, hey, I know that guy. He's pretty good. Yeah, that's all I want to be doing the rest of my life. Just like, yeah, I know him. He's there every ACC kickoff or ACC championship game or tip off, whatever.
Yeah. But same here. Same here.
Great job. And I don't need to, have like the a lot of people. Yeah, I would love to have a lot of people tune in to watch our shows, but I just enjoy doing what we do, and it's fun.
I enjoy it. I mean, it's my fourth year.
It's muscle I do every day. Like my job. I come home and this is what I relax to, and have fun.
Well, sure. I mean, I can say this. I mean, everyone. I work at a grocery store. I'm around people every single day. So Mondays when I do the show with Chris, I come home. I leave work at work. I come home. I'm on with Chris every single Monday night. I enjoy talking to everyone I've talked to. People I never thought I would talk to in the world of sports, but it's like, I tell people what I do. It's like, really? Also, I have autism. It's a form of disability.
Right.
That hasn't stopped me from doing the podcast with Chris, traveling the country to see the best professional bowlers in the world compete on the PBA tour, and working in the general public at a grocery store. So, but I changed my life. Nope. Happy with my life, and I wouldn't change it for one itty bit.
Right. Exactly.
And I love that, and I appreciate that, and I respect you both. Like I said, y'all met me with open arms, and gave me a place at a table, and that place is always there for you as well. And I mean, I think the biggest thing that I can think about when when you think about daily life is make sure everyone that interacts with you sees God. It's not about you. Yeah. It's not about ego. It's not about whatever you have or don't have. Just make sure that when you interact with people, they know God better after talking with you, or they just know God at all. And so I would say that wholeheartedly is bring that. And I said, when I'm done with this life, hopefully when I'm 100, whatever years old, when I am done and I go peacefully in my sleep, I want you guys to be able to say, and everybody else that I came into contact to be able to say, hey, he ran around all the time. We don't know how he slept. We don't know what, he was always doing stuff, but every single person in this room, he made us all feel like that we were the only person in his life. He made every single one of us feel like we were the only person that mattered at that time. And it's genuine, building those relationships. So I would hope that a room of people remembering me and laughing and smiling and having a good time would say, somehow he made us all feel like we were the only person in his life. So be kind to people, be good to each other, be good to yourself. And please, if you don't believe in God, give him a shot. If you believe in God, don't lose hope today. Terrible day to lose hope is what I would say. And we're all going to have fun as we always do. And I applaud you both for being fearless in this world, because life of a broadcaster and a journalist is not easy. And I respect you both for being in this world. And I'm honored to know you both, because there's not a lot of good people in the media with really, really good hearts. And you guys have both always shown that. So I will always, always appreciate that about you both.
Thanks, man. And one more thing is, if I ever get back up to Syracuse, I may want to stop by your house, because it looks like you have good food on Facebook. I may want to stop by and get a
Yeah,
coffee
it's kind of,
bag.
if I ever go to Syracuse, I've heard about a legendary barbecue restaurant that they've got up there that I kind of want to go to and try, since, we North Carolinians know about barbecue
Yep.
here in the western part of the state and also the eastern part of the state. But heard there's good barbecue in Syracuse dance. If I ever get up there, I know you'll take me up there for some really good Syracuse barbecue.
Yeah, and also, Dan, you have anytime you come south to Maryland for a Maryland Syracuse basketball game or anything covered, just give me a buzz. I'll stop by and see you, or you can. I think Nicole would love to have you at the house here. I think.
I mean, it's like if you ever come down here to
cats.
North Carolina. I mean, Scott, if you ever come down here to North Carolina, where I live, Dan, I know a really good barbecue restaurant here in my hometown of Waynesville, North Carolina. I could take you to. It's well known. They got a lot of good choices, and Waynesville has a lot of other really good places to eat. So you're always welcome down here in these Smoky Mountains.
Well, I appreciate that, and y'all are always welcome up here. As you know, Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, this special kicking off the ACC and the 2025-26 football season. ACC Kickoff, listen and for our voices, and have yourself a great time paying attention to these 17 schools. Gentlemen, as always, I appreciate you, Chris Heidel, as well as Adam. And Adam, just I honestly, and I know you and I talked about this before, I'm happy you got to say what you said here today, because like you said, nothing should stop anybody from anything. And autism is something that you have literally worn as a badge of honor, and you have done an incredible job. So for Chris, for Adam, and for all of you out there, chase your dreams. 100% of this screen is doing that. This is Wake Up Call inside of the Great Lakes Honda City Studios. You are all amazing. And as we always say here on Wake Up Call, God bless, no stress, do your best. Take care and stay safe, everybody. I'd like to thank you for watching and listening to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time inside the Great Lakes Honda City Studios on YouTube.com and Facebook.com, both /WakeUpCallDT, and on WakeUpCallDT.podbean.com. Once the shows go live, they jump into the archives, and you can find the ever-growing archive of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, Player FM, Podbean, Podchaser.com, Podvine, Spotify, TuneIn, and YouTube. All you have to do is search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or one word, Wake Up Call DT. Make sure that you follow and subscribe for free on these many outlets. I'd like to thank everyone in North Carolina listening and watching, as well as the visitors to North Carolina. Make sure when you're in the great state of North Carolina, whether living there or visiting, to head to Brooklyn Pickle on 1788 Old Morganton Road in Southern Pines, North Carolina, less than 10 minutes from Pinehurst Golf Course that the PGA knows all too well. Remember, at Brooklyn Pickle, a half is a whole sandwich, and a whole is like eating two sandwiches. Definitely get what you pay for at the Brooklyn Pickle. Head there today in Southern Pines, North Carolina. And many thanks to our team of partners in Central and Upstate New York. Make sure to support Great Lakes Honda City, Carvel DeWitt, the Wildcat Sports Pub, K9 Campground Dog Boarding, Chick-fil-A Cicero, Brian's Landing, MON-FRI, the snack capital of the world, K9 Camp Dog Daycare, Pizza Man, Mother's Cupboard, GG Cards and Breaks, and Avicoli's. And remember that Wake Up Call is the exclusive multimedia marketing partner of your Lemoyne College Dolphins, Bryan and Stratton College Bobcats of Syracuse, and your Binghamton University Bearcats. You will find Lemoyne Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Eastern Time on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, and Binghamton Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Eastern Time on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. To find all of these wonderful schools' growing archives, you can go to youtube.com/WakeUpCallDT, click subscribe, hit the notification bell, and find our Lemoyne playlist, our BSC Syracuse playlist, and our Binghamton playlist. You can also find all of these schools by going to WakeUpCallDT.com's homepage and underneath the Exclusive Partners tab. For more information on the Dolphins, go to LeMoyneDolphins.com. On the Bobcats, go to Syracuse.bscbobcats.com. And for the Bearcats, go to BinghamtonBearcats.com. Once again, thank you for watching and listening to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. Find us 24/7 on Facebook at WakeUpCallDT, X at CallDT, and Instagram at WakeUpCall_DT. For now and for always, God bless, no stress, do your best. From the Great Lakes Honda City Studios, this is Wake Up Call. And remember, you matter. Every day, all the time. Be good to yourself and be good to others. God bless you.